This is our 20th session of Hilchot Shabbat in shulhan-arukh or Haim. We're in chapter 293, where he discusses Arvit on Motzei Shabbat. In Halacha Aleph, he says that one should delay Tfilat Arvit to add leosif me'achor ala kodesh, to extend Shabbat into Sunday and to add some of the mundane time into the sacred time. It's an extension we do both at the beginning of Shabbat and the end of Shabbat. But what is exactly that? The definition of me'acharin, how late should it be? So, as you know, some people follow the opinion of Rabbi Tam that this would be about 72 minutes after sunset, and other people do 35 minutes, 45 minutes after sunset. Technically, one could argue that Shki'ah, sunset, is the end of Shabbat, and any time that you do after that is already Tosefet Hor ala Kodesh, and this is really how we determine the time of the end of Shabbat. So if you pray within that time frame of after sunset, before the official time of the end of Shabbat, then you're good with this halacha of me'acharin tfilat arvit. However, in most communities, what is customary is one of two things: either start tfilat arvit with the official time of the end of Shabbat at this community or the calendar that they follow, and then you would finish Tfilat Arvit about 20 minutes after Shabbat is over, or start Arvit about 20 minutes before Shabbat is over, and then you finish it exactly with Havdalah. And there are arguments for both sides. For a short time when I lived in Israel, in Petah Tikva, there was a breakaway minyan that, people who couldn't wait until Shabbat is over and the main minyan would finish, and they would pray in the street when there was a good weather. It was a dead end, and it was awkward because people praying in the street, you had the feeling of they just want to finish and run home. Also, Israel have those big, what they call frogs, the big trash containers, and people were praying there, and it was inappropriate. However, probably the board of the synagogue, the committee, should have accommodated those people and let them pray in a space where they could do the tefillah earlier. Because when you insist that people would follow that timeline for everyone the same, you create a situation of Torah Tzibur, of burdening the public. You have to understand that not everybody could do that. So the interesting thing here is that in Saif Gimel, the shulhan-arukh says in Halacha 3, Mi she'ahu anus, kegon shetzich lehashich al t'hum lidvar mitzvah. If someone has an emergency, meaning that he has to leave immediately when Shabbat is over, or even lehashich al t'hum means that he walks all the way to the boundary of the Shabbat t'hum, and then he would travel from there on Motzei Shabbat. That person could pray Motzei Shabbat miplaga minha ulma'ala ulhavdil miyad avalei v'echal haner. So what that person could do is pray Arvit miplaga minha, which is about an hour and 15 minutes before sunset, which will make it almost 2 hours before the official time that Shabbat is over. And he could do Havdalah immediately, meaning Havdalah with a cup of wine, but he should not say the bracha on a candle, boreh me'orei ha'esh. And obviously not he doesn't mention that, but probably besamim not also, because besamim are used to restore the spiritual feeling that has been missing when Shabbat is over. So Shabbat is not over yet, but he cannot work until, or do anything that is forbidden on Shabbat until Tzat HaKochavim, 45 minutes after Shki'ah. So the Shulchan-arukh writes it as a last resort if you have an emergency. However, when we look at the source in the Gemara, which is in Talmud Bavli Masechet Barachot 27:2, the Gemara tells this story. Amar Avidan, פעם אחת נתקשרו שמיים בעבים, כי סבורים העם לומר חשיכה הוא, ונכנסו לבית הכנסת והתפללו של מוצאי שבת בשבת. ונתפזרו העבים וזרחה החמה. So one time the sky, נתקשרו שמיים בערבים, the sky were cloudy, and it became dark, and the people thought that it's already sunset. So they entered the synagogue and they prayed, Motzei Shabbat b'Shabbat. We speak about small community, a little village, everybody calls each other, okay, Shabbat is over, let's go in. And then, after they finished, the clouds were dispersed and the sun was shining, so it's full day. ובאו ושאלו את רבי, they asked Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, ואמר הואיל והתפללו, התפללו. They already said the tefillah, we're not going to make them go again when Shabbat is over and pray Arvit. The Gemara explains, Shani tzibur delama terechinan leu. We don't want to cause a unnecessary burden and trouble to the community. An interesting lesson to take from here is that they had no means to measure time, to the extent that they would pray. This is a situation where they think that the day is over 2 or 3 hours before sunset. Just have in mind how this is different from today's obsession with calendars and charts and people praying who want to pray Netzach Hama, and they look at seconds and like minutes and seconds. This is really sad. I think that this is the exact opposite of what the Gemara meant when the Gemara recommended to pray early in the morning and said that the idea of praying early in the morning is to refute and to reject the way of the pagans who worship the sun. And what have we done? We worship the clock. In the minyanim that pray with sunrise, with the Netzach Hama, you would see people trying to time the Amidah exactly by the split second to the atomic clock. This is a new form of paganism. When the Rabbi said pray with sunrise, they meant around sunrise, 15 minutes, 20 minutes before, 20 minutes after. Don't go crazy. Anyway, back to Motzei Shabbat. After the Gemara brought this story of people who prayed, who said the tefillah of Motzei Shabbat on Shabbat by mistake, we have this statement by Rabbi Chia bar Ravin, Rabbi Yoshia metzalei shel Motzei Shabbat b'Shabbat. Rabbi Yoshia used to pray Motzei Shabbat b'Shabbat, and the way it is written here, and also in the Talmud Yerushalmi in Ta'anit, conveys the message that was a regular thing. He would just regularly pray Motzei Shabbat b'Shabbat, finish Shabbat a little early. It's not clear if he did it b'tzibur, if they had a minyan or not, or because this was not established yet that you do all the tefillot in minyanim with 10 people. But Rabbi Yoshia had that practice. Rabbi Yoshia, if he refers to Rabbi Yoshia, who is considered the author of the Tosefta, it's the 2nd century. So this is pretty early, the 2nd, 3rd century, and this is how it is brought later on in the halachic literature that one could pray mitpalel shel Motzei Shabbat b'Shabbat. However, already in the Geonic period, at the time of the Geonim, this has been modified because people didn't feel comfortable. This is a result of the custom-taking route. Shabbat started getting its special character. Remember that we spoke about the way the rabbis gave Erev Shabbat its personality. Same thing with the Motzei Shabbat. Slowly people got used to, on Motzei Shabbat, to wait until Shabbat is over, to pray together, to do Havdalah. So when they looked back on this halakha of praying early, it didn't make sense to them. So they modified it and they said, this is only when you have an emergency, when you have to rush and do a mitzvah or Motzei Shabbat, but otherwise you're not allowed to do that. So we would leave it at that for the communities, for synagogues to decide when they want to pray Arvit. But as individuals, we should know that if we need to, for whatever reason, we have to pray Arvit early, we could do it up to about an hour and 15 minutes before sunset, or 2 hours before the official time of the end of Shabbat. However, there are situations where this is needed for the community. For example, in certain places in Europe, Spain, France, when Shabbat in the summer ends very late, 10, 11 at night, you have two options: either pray early, and maybe that's what they do, but some people, you could also pray at home and then do Havdalah on Sunday. You could do Havdalah with wine early, but not do Melacha until Shabbat is over, and then do start on Sunday with doing Melacha, or some people do Havdalah on Sunday. But at least Tfilat Arvit, if Shabbat is over at 11, 9 is maybe still something which is feasible for people to attend. On Tisha B'Av also, this is something that has been forgotten, but at the time of the Rosh and the Mordechai, we're talking about the 13th century, 13th, 14th century, they still spoke about the option of when Tisha B'Av falls on a Sunday to pray Arvit early, and they even considered the possibility of doing Havdalah with wine, but then they decided not to because it's Erev Tisha B'Av, even though it's still Shabbat. However, instead of scrambling to come to shul on Motzei Tisha B'Av, on Motzei Shabbat, for the Arvit of Tisha B'Av, people would pray early, could stay home, they could eat, and then if they wanted to come to the synagogue and do just the kinot, so that's an interesting option. And finally, a situation where it really causes great distress to the community is when there is a Yom Tov on Motzei Shabbat, and then in some synagogues in some communities they wouldn't pray until Shabbat is over, to make sure also that people don't do forbidden things on Shabbat, because there is a difference between what you could do on Yom Tov on Shabbat. Instead of trying to control the community and burden them with late tefillot on a Shabbat that is followed by a holiday, we should follow that. Pray 2 hours before the official time of Shabbat. Tell people this is the time that Shabbat is over. You could go home, do Kiddush early, enjoy the meal. The Havdalah is fine with just the Havdalah in the Tefillah. We will talk more about the Havdalah tomorrow, but please remember this very, very important rule, that we should try to avoid Torah Tzibur as much as possible, not to cause burden or discomfort to the community. Have a great day.